you know when you've met the one? We as a society, especially within the arts, are kind of obsessed with the idea of the one. Your one true love, your better half, your soulmate, your twin flame. We're completely in love with the idea of love, to the point where you could even say, maybe we're a little bit obsessed.
Well, hello there. Who are you?
Now, there is, of course, a fine line between love and obsession. And, that line is clearly defined. You would know if you've crossed it. I mean, I've watched every single episode of BoJack Horseman multiple times, have some of the songs memorized, and have watched basically every single video analysis of the show on YouTube.
I'm the one who has suffered the most because of the actions of BoJack Horseman.
You've suffered.
Yeah, I have.
The most?
The most.
Really? More than, say, Sarah Lynn?
But I'm not obsessed. Oh god, I'm crazy.
C-R-A-Z-Y. Okay, we get it.
Okay, so maybe the line isn't as easy to see, but hey, I may like BoJack, but at least, unlike some people, I haven't killed anyone over my obsession. Yet. That you know of. The TV show You premiered on Lifetime in 2018, but after Lifetime decided not to renew for a second season, was then switched over to Netflix, where it has run ever since, resulting in its final season airing this month. The show is initially based on the book You by Carol Kipnis, following the story of incel book manager Joe as he tries to woo and seduce a customer by the name of Guinevere Beck. The book is really unique in the sense that it technically is narrated by Joe, but it's written as though we ourselves are Beck, the woman he has become obsessed with, as he narrates the things he is currently watching us doing. It's honestly really impactful and chilling because it gets you in the mind of both the stalker and the stalkee. And it's a book that I thought would be really hard to adapt to film or television. But lo and behold, as the show has taught me, I was right. Yeah, You is not exactly great. Before we go on, just a couple of cleanup notes here. I don't know why I have to say this, but you're allowed to like things. My opinion is just that, my opinion. And despite what the little meat sacks in our skulls like to believe, our opinions are not objective, nor are they universal. And more importantly, they are not a sign of moral piety or immoral godlessness. The things you like do not represent you as a person. Something I think Joe might have to learn. So if I say the show you like is bad, it does not mean you are bad. It just means I think it's bad. And that also doesn't mean I don't enjoy it either, because as we all know, everything is good in moderation, even a little junk food. Why else would I have watched every single season of Love is Blind for shark's sake?
There's this girl on TikTok. She doesn't say any names.
She's referencing me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I had seen it.
In my need for film and TV junk food, You is actually one of my go-tos. I love to hate the show, and I hate to love it. So even though this video will be about why You is bad, because it just is, just know that the call is coming from inside the house. I am a fan. And as my time in the Star Wars fandom has taught me, no one hates a piece of media more than its fans.
You thunder against me? You have done that yourself.
Second cleanup note, this video will deal with spoilers for the first 4 seasons of the show. Since the 5th season is going to be airing shortly before or shortly after this video's release, depending on how long it takes me to edit with my MFA schedule, there will be no season 5 spoilers, but I withhold the right to make a follow-up video should the 5th season be incredibly bad, which I expect it is because oh boy, did that 4th season jump the shark. Since when does Joe have dissociative identity disorder?
For what it's worth, I didn't find your books sordid.
Anyone walking past would just see you mumbling to a chair and assume that you were just as high as the rest of them.
final cleanup note, You is a series that involves some very triggering topics at times. Things like SA, domestic violence, stalking, harassment, misogyny, and unfortunately, unaliving. Yes, I hate that I have to censor these things. I don't like it either, but don't blame me. Blame PewDiePie for dropping a slur and causing adpocalypse, okay? If at any point you find you can't continue because you're too triggered, please feel free to stop. It is okay if you have to stop the video and turn it off. You will not hurt my feelings because after all, I was already dead inside. Like I said, I'm an MFA student. I'm basically held together with duct tape and Diet Coke at this point. With all of that said, let's examine why You is a bad show.
You don't love me. You never loved me.
The reason You is bad can honestly be summed up in one word: adaptation. The first several seasons of You are based on Carol Keepney's book of the same name and its subsequent sequels, Hidden Bodies and You Love Me. Because of the narration style of at least the first book being both first person and second person, it would be an extremely difficult adaptation to do, and even more to do well. And while the show does definitely adapt the style and feeling of the books better than anyone could expect, unfortunately the things that it does fail to adapt or decides to change or ignore within its adaptation, it winds up counteracting the very message that I think the showrunners are trying to convey. But let's go through it point by point, and be warned, we have officially entered spoiler territory for at least the first 3 seasons of the show. So, like I mentioned before, the books are written in a gray area of being somehow both first-person narration and second-person narration at the same time. Joe is the first-person narrator, and we are hearing the story from inside his head. But through the word You, as the book is titled, Joe puts the reader in the position of being Guinevere Beck, the latest victim of Joe's stalking antics at the start of the story. This sort of feeling would be really hard for any adaptation, as it's not really conducive towards a film or TV show structure. But, to be fair, I do think that, difficult as though it may be, the show actually does a good job in bringing that aspect of the novel to the screen.
Your blouse is loose. You're not here to be ogled, but those bracelets, they jangle. You like a little attention. Okay.
Sure, they can't make their audience Guinevere Beck. Guinevere Beck is Elizabeth Lale. I'm not Elizabeth Lale, but they can make their audience feel like they might be Guinevere Beck, at least somewhat.
From every boy masquerading as a man that you let into your body, your heart, you learned you didn't have whatever magic turns a beast into a prince.
Penn Badgley especially does a great job at this aspect, where it really seems less like he's talking to the character of Beck and more like he's talking to the audience, which is a very fine line to walk, but he does admittedly walk it well. However, where the show does fail in adapting its narration is by really toning down just exactly how Joe speaks within the comfort of his own mind.
Beck, who the fuck is this?
Joe's mind is, let's just say, an icky place. And while there are parts of the show that seem to be really trying to get you to understand what Joe is like, they never actually go all the way with how he is in the books. In fact, it seems like they take active steps to soften who Joe is as a person. Let me just compare you to the 2 different Joes.
It's crazy the lengths we go. We're a lot alike, Beck. Last of the true romantics.
And you call that romantic? But if you knew what I went through to get into your home, that I messed up my back trying to know you, inside and out, you'd judge me for it. The world fell out of love with love at some point.
You sound apologetic, like you're embarrassed to be a good girl.
It's gonna be hard to break you. This hungry public part of you that wants to be noticed and observed. You need an escort, Beck, especially if you want to dress like a fucking whore.
What? What the fuck?
I need a bath with bleach. Also, yes, that is Santina Fontana narrating the audiobook, better known as Prince Hans from Frozen.
If only there was someone out there who loved you.
Or in my case, Greg from season 1 of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
He has sex with a bush he has sex with
That wasn't a woman?
No, it was a bush.
Now, of course, I'm not asking for a word-for-word adaptation. What works in book is not always going to work on the screen. Change is just a natural part of this process. But in this adaptation, I think they wound up minimizing Joe's thoughts in a bad way that really only serves to soften Joe. And given other changes, it seems like this was a purposeful choice, one that was done to make the audience like him. But how? How could anyone in the world like Joe? Well, you can make Joe likable by giving him other characters to be compared to. Or in the case of the next section, characters for him to take care of. Every season of You, it seems like Joe takes some wayward child under his wing in order to mentor them and make them feel better.
He was a bad man.
Yeah. He was.
Does that mean it was right to kill him?
Sometimes we do bad things for the people we love.
Said child will inevitably find out who Joe really is in some sort of way, and will leave Joe's life out of their own safety, whether by Joe's own choice or by theirs.
Believe me, you want the truth? I killed Henderson, and I don't feel guilty about it. What I am is all that stands between you and people who are worse. Now let me help you.
You ruined my life.
I am truly sorry. Side door.
In the first season, it was Paco, the child of Joe's drug addict neighbor trapped in a domestic violence relationship. In season 2, it was Ellie, the wisecracking younger sister of Joe's neighbor, who is actively trying to take down the man who essayed her when she was a teenager. In season 3, it's Joe's actual son, Henry, and in the final season, it's Nadia, a young writing student of his existing in a rich school as one of the only underprivileged students. Now, here's the problem with all of the book versions of these characters. They don't exist. Aside from Joe's son, all of them were additions to the show in order to give Joe more attachment than to just whatever girl he's fantasizing about at the time. This idea of more characters is not in and of itself a bad idea. In the books, there's not really many more people in Joe's story aside from whoever it is he's obsessing over, or the people who are obstacles to get in the way of said obsession. Adding new characters helps fill out the world and make the story feel more real. But the problem is that with these characters, it feels less like making the world more lived in and more like they were added for Joe to seem more soft or likable as a person. Joe in the books is honestly not a redeemable character. Like, seriously, not at all. There is nothing to like about this guy. Being in his head and seeing the ways in which he interacts with others definitely does not help this. So these characters, Paco, Ellie, and Nadia especially, are created in order to soften some of those edges. Each character represents a different side of Joe that we will see throughout the season. Paco being the representative of Joe's own childhood, Ellie being the street-smart, tough teenager he had to become, Henry, his son, being the more innocent ties he has to the character of Love, and Nadia being the side that he once wanted to be, being recognized for his intellect instead of being seen as the poor one of the group.
Alumni? Where'd you go?
I didn't.
Joe is always positioned in a place of figurative fatherhood over these characters, or in literal fatherhood in the case of Henry. This automatically places him in the role of protector and caregiver, and when we see Joe as a protector, even if it's just for a moment, we forget that this man is literally stalking women and killing them throughout all of these seasons, which, in my opinion, counteracts the very purpose of the book. The book does not want you to forget about the horrors that Joe has committed. In fact, they frequently remind you of them. You're supposed to be afraid for the safety of the people he's around because he's been known to snap in an instant. He is not a logical or rational person, but giving him this mentor position forces the audience to view him like he is. Another show that does something similar with an anti-hero main character would be the TV show Dexter, which, yes, I also admittedly love.
Surprise, motherfucker!
That show, which is also based off of a book series about a serial killer, Dexter in the books is portrayed as a cold and detached person, while the show instead humanizes him and softens him up to make him more palatable for a mainstream audience.
You think you're better than I am? No. But I want to be.
To be entirely fair, I think that this is because book audiences are more likely to forgive a cold and detached main character when they don't really have a face to look at all the time with this cold and evil presence. TV audiences don't want to return to a show with a main character they don't like, but where I think Dexter just is slightly better is in one simple area where you fails, his victims. Dexter as a show is honest about who their victims are, and shows you when Dexter has broken his moral code. The code that says you're only allowed to kill bad guys.
I'm a serial killer. Oh, God. Oh, that feels so amazing to say out loud.
You tries to mimic this, in my opinion, by assuring you that while Joe will stalk women, the true victims of his murders actually do deserve to be killed. Benji killed a college student in a hazing gone wrong, which was then covered up by his rich parents.
I've done things worse than you. And that's how I know. Joe, you're not a killer.
Henderson is a child predator who was going to assault Ellie after having already assaulted her older sister Delilah as a child.
And I looked down and my skirt was pulled up.
Peach is an abusive friend with a secret pining for Gwen.
You would rather pick apart your friends than maybe admit that you're not being your most amazing self right now.
Gil is an anti-vaxxer who almost killed Joe's son.
We hope you won't hold it against us. You see, we just don't believe in subjecting kids to toxic injections they don't need.
And basically every character that Joe kills has a major reason as to why they deserve it. Hell, even Rufus was a guy who was extorting poor Will Bettelheim and cut off Joe's finger.
I assume you realize that you need psychiatric help?
I'm not crazy, okay?
You're okay with these people dying because, like Dexter's victims, they're all bad, so they deserve it. And, aside from Beck, those who don't deserve it are primarily killed by other people such as Love Quinn.
Joe. You didn't kill Delilah. I did.
We will get to Love. But again, all of that is a change made for the TV show in order to soften Joe up. In the books, Benji isn't some frat boy who got away with murder. He's just a dumb jock that Beck liked.
It's very possible to read a book without having to read it in the traditional manner. You can read about a book.
Henderson isn't some PDF file. He's just an annoying internet comedian who happened to be dating Amy, the girl that Joe is stalking after she broke his heart.
You have to promise me you're not going to tell anybody that you were here alone with me, okay? Because it's kind of...
I get it.
Gil doesn't even exist in the books, neither did Rufus or Malcolm or any of the victims in season 4.
What do you want?
To the defense of season 4, this is because season 4 is completely original and not based off of the books. But the show does still follow the same pattern of having Joe only kill people who are bad, who are annoying.
You're embarrassing yourself, sitting here all loved up over some silly whore who couldn't give two shits about you. She's already riding the next cock as we speak, so move on.
Peach in the books is not some controlling and abusive friend who is obsessed with Beck. She's just a bad friend who only keeps Beck around when she's not hanging out with other rich people. And yes, sure, she just happens to have an unrequited crush on Beck. But she doesn't take pictures of a vulnerable and unconscious girl and then keep them for some sort of collection.
How old were you when this was taken, Beck?
She's not a stalker. She's just a privileged girl who is a threat to Joe's dominance over Beck, the same as Benji.
I know what it's like to be in love with you, Beck. This is not what love looks like. This isn't how love behaves. This is the work of a sick mind.
The show also has Joe showing much more remorse over those he kills, rather than the eerily detached and sometimes proud method he has in the books.
It wasn't my fault that Candace followed me down to the water's edge. And it wasn't my fault that I picked her up and held her down in the water and watched her pass on to the great beyond. She wanted to be there, or she wouldn't have gone down there with me.
In Joe's mind, everyone in the books deserved to die, and he was actually doing everyone a service by killing them.
Benji wasn't lying. He was allergic to peanuts. He died educated. He died with new confidence and new pride. And who says a life has to take 80 years to be lived? He learned, you know?
The book pulls no punches in Joe being a monster. The show, however, uses the victims to make Joe seem somehow less bad by comparison.
We're the same. No. I'm nothing like you.
And even for the victims we are supposed to sympathize with, they're still not great.
I cheated, but it's over now.
Let's discuss where it all began. Beck. Not counting Candace, who is dead in the books, unlike she is in the second season of the show.
I think we have some unfinished business to talk about.
Beck is arguably Joe's first victim. Now, here's where I'm going to be very fair to the show, because as much as the show does change Beck in order to make Joe seem more likable in comparison,
Beck is terrible, Joe. Just this morning, she chewed out a 14-year-old for buying American Tragedy for school because she hates Dreiser. Everyone hates Dreiser.
It also does make Beck more likable by developing her as a character beyond just what Joe sees from her.
Honey, you were a kid. You didn't see what was going on.
Yes, I did. And you were more than just an addict. I miss you.
She's far more serious about her writing career.
From every boy masquerading as a man that you let into your body, your heart, you learned you didn't have whatever magic turns a beast into a prince.
She makes more of an effort in her relationships, and honestly, she's pretty charming.
You're slipping a bit, dear. Touch me again, crazy pants. I dare you. Thank you.
She's not just interesting because Joe tells us she is actually interesting as a character.
You know, I tell people that you're dead. Kind of feels like you did die that day in the basement.
We get to see the ways in which Beck's trauma with her father has shaped who she is.
But then he'd go out and the ladle would go back in the drawer. And I'd wait for the next good day. Until there weren't any more.
We see the insecurities she has when around her friends and why she has to try so hard to impress everyone and fight her place in the creative world.
I think some of your stuff is problematic.
Wait, what do you mean?
But at the same time, this also allows for the show to highlight her flaws in a way that doesn't always make her sympathetic to the audience.
Are you? Or were you ever fucking your therapist?
She does ghost Joe, she does cheat, and she does make bad life choices, especially in relation to her friends and the love life.
My best friend walked in on you getting your dick sucked by some random woman in a bathroom at a party that I took you to.
I didn't even finish.
That's your apology?
These are all things that she does in the books as well, but because the show takes more time to round out her character and really show us the reason behind her making the choices she does make, they do the best and worst thing a show involving a woman can do. They made her imperfect.
Actually believe that all of this is somehow justified.
It is.
Ooh, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard a fan of the show say that Beck is a horrible character because she cheated on Joe, I'd have enough money to pay off my master's degree and find a way to subsidize my Diet Coke addiction.
Beck didn't deserve to die, but she also cheated on Joe, and from her perspective, he was a good boyfriend and did not deserve that.
Okay? He was still stalking and manipulating her in order to fall in love with him. And then he literally killed her when she rejected him.
You think that you did some bad shit and that I did some bad shit and that this is equivalent?
Again, this happens in the book, but by making her a more fleshed out human, it gave people both a reason to sympathize with her and also hate her because she's an imperfect woman who gets trapped in a domestic violence relationship and then tragically loses her life. I'm not gonna lie, despite you being for the most part a bad adaptation, I actually do think the changes that they made to Beck are a net good. So good job, show. I wish I could say the same about the rest.
Do you think this peach looks like a butt?
Oh, love. Oh, love, love, lovey-dove love. In the first half of season 2, Love is presented as the girl next door type that Joe meets and falls for and then naturally stalks the second he gets off the plane in Los Angeles while on the run from Candace. We'll get to Candace in a bit.
There exists for each of us a perfect taco. Point is
it good?
we are gonna find you your perfect bite.
Love is presented as someone who is in recovery from severe amounts of trauma, but is kind, considerate, and really pushes for a healthy timeline and boundaries for her relationship with Joe.
All I meant was that I'm grateful for whatever I can get, which is whenever you want. Or if you don't.
You're right, this is weird.
She's a good partner, she doesn't accept less than she deserves, and aside from her very codependent relationship with her twin brother 40, she's a relatively healthy and well-adjusted person.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably being triggered. Trauma lives in the body, so, you can't control it, but...
Until they completely yeeted that idea out the window in favor of making her a female Joe.
You didn't kill Delilah. I did.
Look, I know that having a good twist is everything nowadays, but there is literally no build up to this because it's simply not the way the character was designed. With Love, it feels like they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted to have the well-adjusted and mild-mannered character that was set up in the books, but also wanted to have a mirror to Joe to show him how unhinged and hypocritical he can be.
It's very hard to think clearly in the river of crazy you're spewing.
Okay, get a grip.
They wanted to justify Joe killing her at the end of season 3 because we know that that's always how Joe's relationships with women end. In murder.
I had to finally stop you.
We're perfect for each other.
And even though Love does unfortunately die in the end of the second book, it's not as a result of Joe killing her, but unfortunately at her own hand after Joe has moved on and fallen in love with another woman.
I was so excited to be a mother and your wife. And as soon as I became that, you punished me for it.
Once again, this is a point where the showrunners wanted to have their cake and eat it too, because in the third season of the show, Love does have a meltdown after Joe falls for another woman.
Love?
Why don't you love me anymore? You know why, you just won't say it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But of course, because she's the female Joe, she has to kill her and take away Joe's new fascination, and of course, because she can't be perfect, she also has to cheat on Joe, all to justify the violence that Joe does to her body at the end of the season.
Aconite, when injected directly, burns as it moves through the system to the heart. Think less slow paralysis, more total fucking agony.
In all fairness to the show, before Love unfortunately shoots Joe and then herself, there is a plotline in which she does have a sort of psychotic break that leads her to some stalking-like behaviors. After Love's parents get Joe acquitted for the murder of Peach, they then make him sign a contract stating that he will no longer be a part of Love or 40's life, which he signs freely and then goes across the country. Upset at how easy it was for him to abandon her and their son, Love kind of does some light internet stalking, threatens to never allow him to see their son, and then tricks Joe into coming to visit her by telling him that there is a chance she might let him see 40. Again, in all fairness to the show, this does kind of make her seem like the female Joe. I mean, she is doing a lot of the things that he did to her and to Beck. However, like with the show, this wasn't really led up to. This is not the character that was established. And because this book was released several years after the second season of You aired, I kind of have to wonder if this is a chicken or the egg situation where I don't really know if it was the showrunner's idea or the author's idea. The idea of having a female Joe is not really a bad idea. This could have worked. But you have to plant the seeds beforehand, even if it's just the slightest little hints. Something that seems sweet in theory, but when thinking back on it is actually manipulative. But they don't do that. Instead, they just retcon it halfway through the season because they wanted that dramatic twist. And then they retconned it again in the third season, where somehow her late husband didn't actually die from cancer, but rather from love poisoning him because he wanted to leave her.
James, what you did to him when he tried to leave. Your mother knew, and she told me.
This is just not the character that they established. This is someone else.
You got so upset killing objectively horrible people. So I thought, he's sensitive. I can do this for him.
And were it not love, this kind of character could have worked, but it could not have worked with her. And it honestly winds up feeling a little redundant with the plotline they're going for with Candace in season 2. Speaking of...
What do you want, Candace?
To kill you with my bare hands.
So, like I said before, in the books, Candace is dead. She's the first girlfriend of Joe's that he murders, and she does not make a dramatic comeback. The character that they created for the second season of the TV show is basically entirely original, except for her name, Amy Adam. Amy Adam in the book is actually a con artist who first appears in You and then reappears as Joe's new girlfriend in the sequel Hidden Bodies. She cons him again, stealing at least $23,000 worth of rare books, and then runs off to LA in order to live out her dreams of being an actress. In Hidden Bodies, this is the point of attack, the call to adventure that causes Joe to move to LA, where he will eventually meet love. In the TV show, however, Candace basically returns from the dead to blackmail and threaten Joe, causing him to escape to LA, where Candace then follows under the pseudonym Amy Adam, in order to punish him for attempting to murder her.
This is real. Candace is here.
Will Bettelheim, what a great name. Almost sounds made up.
Is she trying to spar with me?
That's funny, I was just thinking Amy Adam. How totally ungoogleable.
Once again, this is a change that can only be described as a method of the showrunners attempting to get us to root for Joe. We want him to escape Candace. We want him to outsmart her. Well, I mean, others do. Not me. I'm a girl's girl, after all. I support women's rights, but more importantly, I support women's wrongs.
Murder has a way of following you, and you're not getting away with it.
In the book, however, we worry about Joe finding Amy because we know that it is his intention to kill her for leaving him.
When I pull Amy's extra long body into an infinity pool and make it look like an accident, dare to dream.
He's just not redeemable. He's not running from his guilty past.
I'm done blaming everyone else for the things I've done.
He's attempting to take vengeance on a girl for breaking up with him, and then on Henderson, a random comedian he meets just because they happen to be dating Amy when he gets there. And then in Henderson's stand-up set, he also made a joke about Amy saying that Joe was bad in bed. With this change, we've officially flipped Joe from being the persecutor to being a victim. Because when it's a man being chased by a crazy woman, audiences love a victim, but not when it's the other way around. The show You is a bad adaptation because of the fact that the showrunners work so hard to make Joe a relatable and understandable guy. Or at least a likable guy. And because they do such a good job, they wind up turning what should have been a horror story and cautionary tale into something that winds up glorifying stalking and abuse. Penn Badgley, the actor who plays Joe in the show, is constantly having to remind fans that Joe is a bad person and you should not want to be with him.
Joe's a murderer, right? I love no one likes to call him that. Everyone loves to say stalker. He's not just a stalker.
He's incredibly twisted.
Yeah, he's a murderer. Just want to remind.
What would you like to see happen to Joe?
Death, death,
But why does he have to remind them of that? Because the show makes so many changes, not only to Joe, but his victims and love interests as well, in order to maintain his likability amongst audience members.
Fair, with our show, we have created something where you're meant to fall in love with him. So that's on us.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not actually a stickler for extremely faithful adaptations of books. What works in a book is most often not going to work on screen because film is an entirely different medium. Lord of the Rings is filled with adaptational changes, and it's still one of the greatest film series of all time.
I am no man.
When adapting work from one medium to another, you're going to have to make changes. That's just a reality. But when making these adaptations, you have to be careful that your changes made don't completely counteract the source material and its intentions. The TV series The Last of Us, based off of my favorite game of all time, is another good example of changes made within adaptation in order to improve the work. Sure, there are many places where it's basically a shot-for-shot remake of the game, but there are so many other areas where they looked at what they had originally written and asked how they could improve it more to show the theme of love that they wanted to show in the game. Such as one of the greatest episodes of TV of all time, the Bill and Frank episode.
You live in a psycho bunker where 9/11 was an inside job and the government are all Nazis.
The government are all Nazis!
Well, yeah, now, but not then.
In The Last of Us game, Bill is only hinted at being gay.
Look, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, I had somebody that I cared about. The partner.
And his partner, Frank, is never seen alive within the game.
He's got bites. Here.
And it's also hinted that they had a very vile and abusive relationship, with Frank's final note to Bill telling him that he hated Bill the entire time they were together. The Last of Us TV series, however, takes the opportunity through flashback to show us exactly how their relationship began, how it developed, and gave them one of the most beautiful love stories and love story endings I've ever seen.
I'm old. I'm satisfied. And you were my purpose.
And yes, I'm literally crying just talking about it because that final note that he leaves him.
I used to hate the world, and I was happy when everyone died. But I was wrong, because there was one person worth saving. That's what I did. I saved him. Then I protected him. That's why men like you and me are here. We have a job to do. And God help any motherfuckers who stand in our way.
When making changes in adaptation, you have to be careful of what the source material wanted to say, or else you wind up having to constantly remind people of the theme and how bad the characters are, because we all know media literacy is dead. But with all of that said, I'm not gonna lie, this show is still one of my guilty pleasures. Is it a bad show in the messaging sense? Yeah, absolutely. But setting aside the problematic aspects of it, the writing is still really good in a lot of areas. The dialogue is compelling, the storytelling is well done. But side note, why is it that every girl Joe falls for in the show has friends that are social media famous? Like, seriously, creators Greg and Sarah, becoming social media famous is not that easy. And we're not a dime a dozen. But you are right in the sense that we're all garbage. Except Sound of the Forest. Nicole is legitimately a friend of mine, and she is the best of all of us, and I would die for her! While being a bad show with bad messaging, You is also not really a bad show. And seriously, the performances of all the actors is so underrated. Penn Badgley kills it. Jenna Ortega is as charming as ever because she's Jenna fucking Ortega.
Wait, let me guess. She called him a perv. Yeah, know who else she called that? Half the fucking cast of Sesame Street, okay?
And Victoria Pedretti as Love Quinn has brought me to tears so many times.
are you guys doing?
You've done enough. All you ever have to do is keep your brother safe. You failed. You disgust me.
You're a fucking hypocrite.
Earth, mommy, dearest. Oh, love.
There is a reason this show is popular, and it's not just because we're all garbage humans. I mean, like I said, I am, but that's for other reasons that have nothing to do with the show and everything to do with the fact that I eat hot dogs by peeling the skin off of them first. So if you do like this show, you're not somehow a bad or immoral person. And it's okay to like media that has problematic elements. Enjoying problematic things while acknowledging at the same time how and why they are problematic is a huge part of media literacy, something that our country is severely lacking right now. If I see one more goddamn person say that it's a spoiler for Haymitch to win his games, I'm gonna lose it! But please, go ahead and enjoy your problematic show, and while you do it, just think of me and this video, and that I eat hot dogs by skinning them first. Hi there! Thank you so much for watching this video. Please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and also comment down below what you want me to talk about next, because that really helps the algorithm, and a girl needs to eat. Hot dogs and Diet Coke do not by themselves, and neither does a master's degree. If you really, really like our channel, be sure to check out our YouTube memberships, merch, or even our Patreon, all of which are linked down below. For members and patrons, we actually have a lot of exclusive content, including things I share to teach other writers what I'm learning in my MFA program, because I really love helping people get connections to the tools they need. And also, I love people learning from my mistakes as I critique my own work. Today's Patreon shoutout goes to our newest member, Awkward, because we absolutely love that name, and also, me too, bestie. We are so happy to have you join our army of bimbos as we plot to take over the world. So come to our Patreon memberships. Join us.